Hey, what's happening, YouTube family? It's Mark here from Mark's Mind. I haven't done any videos in such a long time. I should be ashamed of myself for keeping my loyal subscribers in the dark on my thoughts and what I've been doing. Well, I've been very busy, and I have to admit that I'm not the best at multitasking. But I thought, a video is long overdue, so let me do something now. So what I wanted to do was talk about entrepreneurship, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine in London this week, and he was asking me questions like, how is it that I took on doing business? And as I spoke to him, I realized that I've been surrounded by business people most of my life. My grandparents on my father's side, they were farmers in the hills of Hanover in Jamaica, growing yams, bananas, all kinds of stuff. And they did okay for themselves, considering that where they were at that time back in the day. And they did okay for themselves. They didn't become rich or anything, but they did okay. On my mom's side of the family, my grandparents were also business people. My grandfather was a master carpenter, did some amazing work. And my grandmother was a seamstress. And then from being a seamstress, she opened her own furniture and hardware company on the main street of our town in Jamaica, a town called Savannah Lamar. And when she died, my mom, who is a nurse, she took over the business despite being the youngest of 4 kids. She stepped up to the plate and took over the family business. And my dad, he also did business from back in London. When I was born, my dad was he worked in many different jobs. In his 20s, he got sick and tired of working for people. And what he did was saved his money, and he opened his own greengrocers in North London in an area called Wood Green. For my Wood Green people, you might know Middleton Road of Green Lanes. That's where my dad was. And he had the greengrocers on the first floor, the ground floor, and we were above. And my dad did that for a few years, and then he had met my mom in London. They got married, and when I was close to being 3 years old, they had enough of London. I guess they got tired of the cold and all that stuff. And we went back to Jamaica when I was almost 3. So when we packed up London, my dad took his truck. He bought an old truck, a Bedford, like real old truck. He bought that, and he started driving this truck as his business. And he built himself up. And my dad was working in Jamaica on a kind of British business mindset. So he was never late. He was on time. If his few clients wanted him to be there at 6, he was always there at 5:50. He was never late. And that made him immediately stand out from the crowd in Jamaica, who always worked on Jamaican time, right? People in Jamaica have a reputation for being tardy, but my dad could stand out from the rest, and he built himself up, getting more and more bigger contracts over time, because he became to be so reliable. And after he did trucking for a while, he went from one old truck to eventually getting rid of that truck, buying a new truck, and then he started buying. He had about 4 or 5 trucks on the road at one point. I wouldn't say my dad became super rich, but we lived a pretty comfortable life when I was growing up. I would say a middle class kind of lifestyle in Jamaica. And so after he had enough of trucking, he closed that down and took the money from that, and he opened up a small wholesale business, selling to the local people. Some people wanted to buy bulk, but he could sell stuff to people smaller as well. So he did that for a while until he retired. He had enough of that, and he retired. And so I've always been surrounded by business people. Now, my earliest memory of when I was involved in business for myself, or at least trying to be, was when I was working in the family business, the furniture and hardware business that my mom took over when my grandmother died. There were times when the local drug dealers, they'd have a big score, they'd sell weed or whatever. I assume that's what they were selling. We're talking about in the, say, 80s, early 80s. So they'd have a big score, and they would come to my mum's, the family business that my mum managed, and they would want to buy everything under the sun. So they'd want to buy beds, sofas, dining tables and chairs, you name it, bedside tables. They'd want to buy the whole lot. And that was when I got my first exposure to sales. Even though these sales were for the most part guaranteed, I was sweet talking these drug dealer guys, and I guess they were amused by me trying to cajole them into basically guaranteed sales. But that was my first memory of me trying to, get people to buy from me. So it was fun, and they were entertained, and that was my first exposure. And then I think when I was in the first or second year of junior high school, what in Jamaica everyone calls junior high school, and high school is all high school. But I was maybe about 12 or 13 years old, and I had this Nintendo video game. It was a boxing game. You had the controller 1, controller 2. You rolled out the connectors. If I find an image, I'll put it on the screen. And I would sell plays. You could play against the machine, which was 50 cents. And if you wanted to play against another boy or girl or whatever, mainly boys wanted to play, it was 50 cents each. So start doing the math. I was making some pretty good money at the time. 50 cents a pop. Every time 2 people wanted to play, that was $1 right there. Just to give you an idea of how much money I was making, 50 cents was the bus fare from my home to school. So with just 2 people playing, that was my bus fare covered. Business was so good because all I had to do was buy replacement batteries. Business was so good that I wasn't even relying on my parents for pocket money anymore, and parents, at least my parents, and I guess a lot of parents do this, they control their kids' movements through pocket money. But because I didn't even need their pocket money anymore, and I was making so much money selling plays on my video game, right? It was so basic as well. It was just like upper punch, lower punch, block. It was we're talking about early 80s and the Nintendo. It's not all fancy like they have now. And anyway, so my parents soon put a stop to my business because literally, as a kid, you're not thinking about saving too much. So I was going out buying records, I was buying t-shirts, I was buying better lunches. So instead, for my Jamaican people who know about going to buy patty and cocoa bread for lunch with a box drink, now I was having like box lunch for lunch. I was buying chicken and rice and peas with a little side coleslaw. My Jamaican people know what I'm talking about. So I was having box lunches every day, and I was coming up in the world. But my parents put a stop to that, and before you knew it, I was back to patty and cocoa bread. So that was that. And then my parents decided to ship me off to boarding school. And at that time, my dad had a contract, a haulage contract with the Jamaica Biscuit Company. The Jamaica Biscuit Company makes Excelsior water crackers and all these other cookies that I can't remember the names now. But every now and then, what they would do, because my dad, again, very reliable contractor with them, and everyone he ever worked with, they would just give him free cases of cookies and crackers, right? And I remember once during the holidays when I was working on one of the trucks, I said to my dad, because I think my dad wasn't even driving at that time. Well, he was driving one of the trucks, but I was out with one of the drivers, whatever, going up to Kingston to load up the truck and stuff. And they would give us, free boxes for my dad. They'd be like, if I was with my dad, they would give him free boxes or cases of of cookies and crackers. And I said to my dad, at this time I was in boarding school, and I said to my dad, so what do you do with the crackers and cookies? And he goes, well, I keep a few, but for the most part, I just give away most of them. So I said, don't give them away, give them to me, right? So I was at boarding school, and for those of you who have ever had an experience with boarding school, there's what they call a tuck shop. And the tuck shop sold cookies and crackers and this type of stuff. So I saw an opportunity to make some money because the tuck shop wasn't always open, sorry. So when it was closed, especially over the weekends, I was boarding, what I started doing was getting all the cookies and crackers from my dad for free and then selling it to the guys who were boarding. Now I was making some decent money doing that because, again, no overheads, right? I was literally selling free stuff. So that was going great until one of the teachers, Mr. Williams, nicknamed Tuku, he lived on campus. He was also doing a similar business. He didn't like that I was cutting in on his business, and he kind of came and roughed me up a bit and told me to basically close down my business, Yakuza Mafia style. And I was 15, and he was bigger than me at the time, and he's a teacher, so he could have me in detention. And if I remember correctly, if memory serves me correctly, he even threatened detention like indefinitely, like I'd be in detention forever. So I was powerless. Of course, now at my age, if someone came and tried to strong arm me, it wouldn't go down like that, trust me, right? Especially after that experience, because now I'm like, there's no way I'd let someone punk me like he did when I was 15. We're talking 30 years ago. So that's what happened with that business. That closed down. And then, after high school and, during my late teens and 20s, my entrepreneurial endeavors kind of got put on the back burner. I don't know. I just became an employee and put all my stuff on the back burner. And then while, I'm living in Japan now, and then I saw the opportunity for me to start making some extra money by teaching English. So separate to my English teaching jobs, my day jobs, if you want to call them that, I started teaching people in my living room. I teach individuals one-on-one for an hour, charge them X amount of money. I won't say how much, but just in case the tax man's watching. But I did that for quite some time. I must have done that. How long did I do that for? I did that for about, started that in about 2007. And I did that for about 8 years, maybe. About 8 years, maybe. Yeah, so it was easy money. I'm at home, right? I didn't have any overhead expenses besides buying some tea and coffee and making people tea or coffee, or giving them some vitamin water during the summer, or water. So my expenses were low, and I was teaching about 1 to 2 classes between Monday to Friday from the comfort of my own home. And I got tired of that, and I packed that up. And my other business started overlapping with that was when I started my nutrition program, My Diet 180. For a while, I got a bit overweight. I wasn't obese or anything, but I got overweight, and I lost the weight, and I thought, hey, why don't I try to help people do what I do? So I started a boot camp. It was called Mark's Boot Camp. I don't do it anymore, but I am actually thinking about doing it now via Zoom from the comfort of my own home again, and making it really cheap because I don't have any overhead costs of renting places and all that type of stuff. So I'm thinking about doing that. So if I do decide to do Mark's Boot Camp again via Zoom, I'll let you know. And I'm targeting people in the West because of the time difference and stuff. Anyway, so I started the very first foreign-owned boot camp in my town. And from that, I thought, how can I reach more people? So I started my online nutrition program called My Diet 180. And from that, when I told people about my nutrition program, they were like, oh, yeah, I need to start working out more. So people always think that working out is the most important part. They refuse to accept that it's nutrition. But anyway, so hearing so many people say that, I need to exercise, I created my workout program, Tremor Workout. You know, I call it Tremor Workout because I had the idea that people have to shake things up. The tremor, the new lifestyle, right? So I combined them now. So on my website, Tremor Workout, you can get Tremor Workout and my Diet 180 as a free bonus. Of course, I'm plugging my business. So what I do. And I do another thing online as well, which I don't really talk about much, because after my experiences with doing online business, sometimes it's best to just work under the radar. You find that doing business, although you think it would be attracting positivity, it can attract negativity. And that's what I want to talk about in part 2 of this video. So for those of you who hung in there and you got to the end of this video, thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you get all notifications when I do a video. And yeah, look out for part 2 coming very soon, where I talk about the dark side of entrepreneurship. All right, guys, so thanks for watching. Take care, peace and love. Take care. See ya.